that you want to, in the event that you want to revisit this meeting in the future, it'll be recorded for posterity. You'll be able to watch it forevermore. Thanks everybody for joining us today. I'm Dan Bolognani, Executive Director of the Upper Housatonic Valley National Heritage Area. And as required under Public Law 109-338, passed by Congress in 2006, we are required twice annually to hold a public meeting and invite not only our board members, but our supporters, our volunteers, our community members to join and listen into what's going on and do a program update, a brief financial update, and generally make our our operation available for questions. So thanks for joining us. I'm going to ask everybody to mute if you are not already. We had a little bit of background noise happening, and we don't want to distract from the content of the meeting. First of all, let me introduce our board of trustees. As I've said in the past, I think we've got the best darn board anywhere, and that includes Catherine Boughton, North Canaan Town Historian, our current chair, Will Conklin, who's Executive Director of Green Azures, Allison Dixon with the Housatonic Valley Association, Mariah Fogg, Berkshire Natural Resources Council, and our esteemed control person today. Thanks again, Mariah. Leslie Hertzberg, who's Executive Director at Berkshire County Historical Society and Herman Melville's Arrowhead. Rob Hoogs, our secretary, Bidwell House Museum Board, and Monterey Historical Society. Paul O'Brien, president of Sheffield Historical Society. Marge Smith, who is our vice chair. She's curator at Kent Historical Society. Craig Langlois, Equity of Learning District Data Coordinator for Pittsfield Public Schools. And Jane Wynn, Executive Director of Berkshire Environmental Action Team. And thank you all again, all of my board members. And that includes Paul Ivory, Great Barrington Historical Commission board member emeritus. And Paul has been with us since the inception of this wonderful program. We'll introduce a few of our guest presenters in just a moment, but let me turn it over to our chair, Will Conklin, for comments.
Hello, everyone. Again, thanks for taking the time to join us and not only help us fulfill this obligation under our federal funding, but to share the work and to be in community in that way, so that we can further strengthen the community that we all are working in. It's been quite a learning process for me to be a part of this group now for 8 or 9 years, and I'm continually impressed and encouraged by the projects that this organization makes contact with and helps catalyze, and it operates in a fashion that I find greatly heartening in terms of being grassroots and in terms of helping both organizations, large, small, little known and well known alike. It really touches a lot in our communities from Pittsfield all the way to Kent, and across many different disciplines and cultural facets of our community. So it's I think it's something that that certainly our board is proud of, and that all our program partners are proud of, and it wouldn't be a meeting, or we would be remiss in this meeting without always acknowledging Dan Bolognani and his efforts as our executive director. He really knows the territory, he knows the people, and he knows how to work with folks in a very supportive way, in an amplifying way, and I know we all look up to him for that. So I'm excited to hear from some of our partner projects. As you'll note in the agenda, there's some time for Q&A at the end. So if thoughts come to mind, please put them in the Q&A or hold on to them for the end. And as Dan mentioned, if folks could, if they're not speaking, stay on mute, silence your cell phones, and the exits are at the front and rear of the Zoom room. So, I'll turn it back over to Dan.
Thanks, Will. Thanks. I feel the love and the support of the board as always. So in addition to a few of the programs that you'll hear additional detail about on today's meeting, and we're going to just move very, very quickly through this, I thought I would share a list of other programs that we're either supportive of, directly involved in, created, fiscally sponsor, etc. This is not entirely inclusive, but I urge you to check out our website. It's at housatonicheritage.org. But let me just run through these very, very quickly. Some of these are legacy programs that have been with us since we began as a program in 2001 when we incorporated as a nonprofit, and 2006 when we were finally designated by U.S. Congress as a national heritage area. But the Iron Heritage Trail and the African American Heritage Trail and actually the Paper Heritage Trail were a few of the very first programs that we got involved in, that we started organizing, because those were foundational to the region's economy and the history. And so these early historical industries, which are part and parcel of the upper Housatonic Valley, were identified very early on, not only in our feasibility study as a national heritage area, but also in our management plan as important projects that we should undertake. So those were very important early on. But since then, we've begun working with the Stockbridge-Munsee Community Band of Mohican Indians, a federally recognized tribe with ancestral homelands here in the upper Housatonic Valley, on a Native American heritage trail. And that program continues to develop as well, with a lot of work going on in and around Stockbridge, many partners there. We implemented a program in partnership with the Berkshire Community College called the Oral History Center, which is a regional resource for history organizations and other organizations that are involved in oral histories. And you'll hear more about that from our Oral History Center Director, Judith. The Du Bois National Historic Site Program, which is an outgrowth of our early African American Heritage Trail, and a lot of partners, a lot of interest around Black history here in the region and the legacy of our African American residents, in particular Du Bois as of late. And so that program continues to develop rapidly as well. Heritage Trails and Greenways, where we support the development of walking and biking trails throughout the area, including the Western New England Greenway. You'll hear a little bit more about that in detail from Tom O'Brien, who is on our Trails and Greenways Committee and is in charge of the Connecticut portion of the Western New England Greenway. Operation Pollination, which has a lot of tentacles, not only here in the upper Housatonic Valley, but nationally and internationally. And as of late, we work very, very closely with the National Park Service and with some other organizations, including Rotary International, on projects that seek to preserve pollinator habitat to create diverse ecosystems here in the region. And very recently, working with Berkshire Community College, again, to create a campus-wide plan of diversity and pollinator protection. So that is just recently unfolding. We're just getting to the implementation phase on what that plan, how that plan can be practically implemented on the campus of Berkshire Community College. So stay tuned for more information about that as the program develops. The annual Heritage Walks, again, was a legacy program we implemented on the very first year that we were in existence, where we invite our many, many history, culture, and natural resource partners to provide free guided walks to their resource. And we promote the heck out of those. They are weekends in September and are out in publication now. Their brochures are in distribution. The website is updated, and there are, I think, 82 2 heritage walks this year. So free guided walks. It's a wonderful program. Get out there. It's access to places in your own neighborhood that you may have never thought to visit. So a couple, one additional that I'll mention, and that is a Teach the Teachers program that we work with Connecticut's Regional School District 1, the public schools here in Northwest Connecticut, to do a heritage immersion course in partnership with, for instance, the Beckley Furnace, Great Mountain Forest, Housatonic Valley Association, and other partners to give the teachers an opportunity to see what heritage resources are directly in the communities that we serve and that their students live in. And so that, you know, the local history or cultural science curricula could include local sites and resources. And so we work very hard working to connect teachers with local heritage resources. We're going into our 7th year with that program this fall. So all of these programs are on our website, HousatonicheRitage.org. And if you want updates as these programs develop, sign up for our e-newsletter. We send them periodically when there's something noteworthy happening. And yeah, that's all I've got to say about that. Let me give you a quick look at our finances year to date. This is just a snapshot in time, our profit and loss statement, so you get a sense. We enjoy ample federal support appropriated by Congress because we are a program of the National Park Service, and as such, we carry the you know, hopefully we strive to bring the same quality of interpretive work, preservation work that the Park Service exercises throughout the country, and we hope to be that extension here in the Upper Housatonic Valley. There are individual and business contributions, other foundation grants that come to bear to support our work. But as you can see here, and this is just a very brief snapshot in time, we're a small organization on paper, but I hope we have an outsized impact in the neighborhoods that we serve. So that's the takeaway from our profit and loss. There's not a lot of real surprises there for our board members in particular. But anyway, thanks for that, Mariah. And next on the agenda, I'm going to invite one of our guests, Ronan McCrisky, and Ronan and I have known each other for just a very few years now, and I think it was born out of a conversation that we had where he had called and was looking for local history resources, and I had put him in touch with the Salisbury Association. But Ronan is faculty at Salisbury School right here in town where our main office is. And I'm going to turn over now to Ronan, who will talk to you about this amazing program that he's developed.
Out of Zoom rhythm there. Thanks, Dan. No one who knows you will consider you small. Mighty, maybe, but not small. So Dan, thanks. And Dan, you're absolutely right. And so brief introduction. I'm a recovering administrator. I've worked at Salisbury School for a long time, and I had this fantasy of returning back to the classroom and doing a local history course. And in 2019, that was going to be the Underground Railroad. I was convinced that terminals ran through Salisbury. There aren't any known places. And then COVID happened, and then George Floyd was murdered. And I realized how kind of woefully unprepared I was for this new era. And so I started to do a lot of work. And some of that work brought me to Dr. Hassan Kwame Jeffries of Ohio State. And Dr. Jeffries worked on this hard history program for Connecticut educators. And then after I told him my idea for my course, that was on pause. And he said, Ronan, white people love the Underground Railroad. He's like, those stories have been told. He said, there are a lot of stories in your own backyard that need to be told, that need to be shared, that need to be researched. So I started my research right away. And I did this book, of course, and all this stuff that I'm hearing and the familiar faces and names I'm hearing, I mean, all spider webs. And so this book, published by the Upper Housatonic heritage area, was really this lamppost for me. And I knew none of this. I didn't even know Connecticut enslaved people. Like it was really eye-opening for me. So I approached all this with great humility. And through Dan's contact, we got to meet this wonderful woman, Catherine Overton. Catherine traced her roots back here to the 1800s. Her great 5 times removed grandfather was a Revolutionary War soldier who bought land up in Salisbury. And so she was a Black descendant from this area. And she became this kind of mentor. And the kids in my class, because we started to do this project-based class called Coloring Our Past, said, we want to make a documentary about her. She was in Texas. We knew nothing about it. Dan made it happen when we reached out to him. So here's just a little taste.
During her research, Miss Overton hypothesized that her great-great-grandfather, George Caesar's 1850 property, was now part of the Appalachian Trail. So one fall Sunday, we decided to trek up to the campsite to see if we could prove her theory.
It was unbelievable to actually see the actual land and the remnants of the house, the cellar, the stones are still there. The stones that were placed by possibly George Caesar's hand. The fact that they're getting involved in it hands-on means it's gonna live with them, just like it lives with me.
So when we showed this documentary, and again, Dan got us cameras and ring lights and prepared us with a documentary filmmaker, Ben Willis. I mean, Dan was really behind the scenes, the maestro of that. But when we had this, we showed it to this big Zoom with all Catherine's extended family. And someone said, oh, you should do something on my cousin Artie. He was a chauffeur for the Spingarns. I knew nothing. The name didn't sound familiar to me. But it turns out the Spingarns own the Troutbeck in Amelia, New York, which I had driven by 5,000 times. And I saw a little historical marker about the Transcendentalists, but it also was the home to 2 pivotal NAACP meetings. And Joel Spingarn was one of the first presidents of the NAACP. And it also became this writer's retreat for the artists of the Harlem Renaissance. And so when I brought this idea, like, let's have local history, let's tell these stories, they said they thought the idea of having students do it was a great idea. And then I went back to Dan, and this just totally mirrors what Dan told me. Like, it's making these stories known, getting kids involved in this history. It just seemed like low-hanging fruit. And we started approaching schools, and they started hopping on. And this year we had 14 schools. And again, back to the spider web, part of this. I mean, like, it all connects, and it's really fun. Not only that, we're working with public schools, and we're working with middle school students, and that's all fun, because the only time we ever got together was sports or dance every now and then. So it's fun to kind of nerd prom this with all those schools, but also all these historical associations. We're hoping to potentially this year partner with the Washington Indigenous American Research Center, things like that, and Arrowhead and Melville. I mean, all these things spiderweb and connect. And Sheffield Historical Society with the Massachusetts 54th. Paul, I mean, a lot of exciting stuff. And so the presentations, so the Tropic Symposium happens over 3 days. There's presentations, there's artwork, fabulous artwork that continuously bowl me over. WSEG project is a part of it, from WSEG, New York, and a number of really powerful documentaries. One on eugenics from the Lakeville School for Imbeciles in our backyard. Lily Rand from Sharon Public School, Sharon Center School did cotton, where an artist came up to talk about the history of cotton and the usage of cotton. Peter Vermillier at Housatonic did this amazing thing on Little Rock graduates. They shut the Little Rock schools down after Little Rock 9 desegregated, and 2 Little Rock students graduated from Housatonic. Like, that's such a cool story. And then there's other stories about anti-Semitism in this area, about authors, James Mars. I mean, like, lots of really cool stuff like that. And then this is just a clip that I think captures a good essence.
I have been to scores of conferences and symposia and programs, and I can tell you hands down, this is the most important, most productive, most meaningful, and most promising thing I have done in my career. I'm getting teary. And also we sit around. I mean, I love all these conferences. I've done a lot of things. But we often talk about what we're gonna do, what we should do, what we think we could do, what we could publish, you guys are doing it. You guys are doing it. It's so inspiring. It is the roadmap for the future. And I just want to say thank you for the
So that's Dr. Christina Parenza-Coles from University of Virginia. You know, sure, her quotes included here as well. And I will go back to a line I heard earlier, like the catalyst of this was Dan, was this organization. I never would have had the courage to even dream it if I didn't think that good people like you guys were behind making things like this happen. So thank you very much.
Terrific. Ronan, the energy that you put into this is amazing, and how well organized it all is. The herding cats thing doesn't even begin to describe what you've done with was 14 schools, right, that were involved this spring. But as an attendee, I was there for multiple days to see the energy in the room, in these kids with the spark of history as they research these local, stories with local roots to them that I had never heard of. And I think I thought of myself as pretty well versed in all of this, and I had a lot to learn from these kids. But stunning, and yeah, this is the sort of thing that we can and should be supporting as a National Heritage Area program. So Ronan, thank you so much for the program and for today's report. Really appreciate that. So one of our projects, to do with hiking, biking, and trailing is the Western New England Greenway, and Tom O'Brien is on with us today to give us an update. Take it away, Tom. It's all yours.
Hi, can you all hear me? Hello? I'm unmuted. Can you all hear me? No.
Yeah, you're good, Tom.
Okay. So I'm trying to share my screen. How am I doing with that? Right. Okay. Got it? Okay, thank you. First off, I just want to say nothing I'm about to talk about would have been possible without the support of Housatonic Heritage and the leadership of Dan Bolignani, who's just been a terrific supporter of this. I'm not sure if you all can hear me. Could you nod your heads if you can hear me?
Yeah, you're
okay,
good, Tom.
Because I don't hear anything back. Okay, thank you. So essentially, the Western New England Greenway is a bike route, a 381-mile bike route from the Canadian border to Norwalk, Connecticut, that follows the Housatonic River through from Great Barrington all the way to New Milford, which is my hometown, and it runs most of the way through the Route 7 corridor, and it's intended to be an alternative source of transportation for bicyclists, an alternative to Route 7, which is a dangerous road for bicyclists. So, the role that Housatonic Heritage provided is 12 years ago, I was one of a number of people in my town trying to create a greenway trail on the river and make our town more bike friendly. Not having much success, and I met up with Dan and his group, and essentially we started working together, and it grew from there to the point that we have stakeholders all the way from Norwalk to Burlington, and that's made up of a number of people who are still trying to extend their separated bike ped trails, and that'll continue to go. But what we did as a group is we connected everything using existing roads, back roads as much as possible. And that's what became the Western New England Greenway. Next page. So this is one of the off-road trails. This is the trail I've been working on in New Milford called the New Milford Greenway. We also have the D&H Trail in Vermont. So we probably, and the Asher-Wilticook Trail is in Berkshire County, Massachusetts. That continues to get longer. So the efforts to continue to connect and extend these off-road trails will continue. But what we have been able to do is use back roads, which exist throughout this region. This is New Milford. This is the Housatonic River. And that's the Housatonic River in Cornwall, Connecticut. So through this effort, we have 381 miles of, and I would say not every road is perfect. A couple places we've had to use Route 7, but most of it is delightful bike riding, and it continues to get better. We also exploit the historical features of our area, the covered bridges in West Cornwall and in Kent. So our effort is bike travelers, bike transportation, recreation, and the beauty of this region and the history of this region. So we all got together about 2010, and by 2013, using all volunteers who knew their area, we had mapped out this route all the way from Canada to Norwalk. Thanks to you all, thanks to Dan, we have printed maps. It takes 6 maps to cover the 381 miles, but we have beautiful printed maps that allow anybody to follow this entire route. And once we came up with the route, we organized 4 years in a row what we called reconnaissance rides, where a small group, many of us stakeholders, others we invited, would ride from one end of the route to the other. One year it was from Burlington down to Norwalk. Next year was Norwalk North. This, I think, was the 3rd year. And as I showed you, this is a group of bike travelers on that back road in Cornwall. In 2016, we applied and we were accepted. The Western New England Greenway was designated as a United States bicycle route, which we were delighted about that. And the US bicycle route system, actually, that's our sign, which designates us as US bicycle route number 7. The 7 was not selected by us, it was selected by AASHTO, the American Association of State Highway and Traffic Officials, who operate the US bicycle route system. And they operate it as like a corollary to the interstate highway system. So it's a long distance bike travel network. And they gave us 7 because we're the Route 7 corridor, but that's led to some confusion. And we have to explain to people that no, you're not riding on 7. This is an alternative to Route 7, but we're very proud of the sign. And this map shows the route. Sorry, I hit the wrong thing. As you can see, it does have a look like the interstate highway system. Most of it is unfinished. The dotted lines are all proposed routes or routes under development. Ours is one of the first completely finished routes. You can see all along the right side, that's US Bike Route 7 from Norwalk to Canada. And these others are still under development. So a quick explanation of what the US Bike Route system is. I kind of compare it to a ski resort. When we're building these off-road bike trails, those are like the green circles, the easy trails. And the US Bike Route system is more like the blue squares, intermediate, not black diamonds, not advanced, but it's for people who are capable of oftentimes sharing the road with traffic. And it's also intended for more long-range travelers. And in our case, our route connects with the East Coast Greenway in Norwalk, and it connects with Quebec's Route Verte at the Canadian border. So, so the purpose is to get more people on bikes, increase local awareness of cycling, which makes it more safe. Drivers are looking out for people on bikes. It's good for the environment, which, you know, we need to drive less and use alternate transportation as much as we can. Travel options and an economic benefit to communities, which there's tons of data that shows how much benefit is bringing bike travelers with money to spend into rural communities who may be not as vibrant as they used to be. So that happened in 2013. 2016, we were designated as Route 7. It's not required that you put up signs, but it's encouraged. And you know, we're most proud of the fact, thanks to Dan again, he was able to secure funding to purchase signs for the entire 84 miles of the route in Connecticut and provide those signs to the 12 municipalities that we go through. And that's signposts, and that the big US 7 sign that identifies the route, turns where they're needed, and WNEG, which identifies this as also Western New England Greenway. So I was tasked with interacting with 12 municipalities, providing them with information where we suggest the signs should go, and then providing them. And Dan had the difficult job of being a logistics coordinator and handling the purchase and the deliveries. And I really appreciate Dan for doing that, so I didn't have to. First sign went up last fall. This is in Falls Village. And I just want to say that every First Select person was delighted to talk to me, and they were enthused about getting these signs. This is Susan Nestor, who's First Select person of Weston. And she said it was the best meeting she'd had all week when I came in to talk to her about how we wanted to put these signs on two of the most beautiful roads in their town that follows the Saugatuck River, Valley Forge Road, and Lions Plain Road. And I'm sorry to say I forgot the name of her puppy, but he has recovered from his surgery and he's doing fine now. I have to show you a sign from New Milford, which is my hometown. So at this point, we're going to go back. At this point, we have 12 municipalities in Connecticut that are part of our route. We have now, all 12 have agreed to accept the deliveries of signs. 11 already have the signs, 10 have already erected all of their signs. The one holdout was Norwalk because they had turnover and shortages in their engineering department. And I think I have been working with the third person since I started, and the other two left. So finally, they are ready to accept the signs. Dan has placed the order for their posts, and I'm delivering the signs and hardware on Monday. So by the end of the summer, we're hoping that all 84 miles, there will be turn-by-turn signs. So anybody who wants to ride from north to south in Connecticut to the Route 7 corridor, they don't need the maps, they don't need the smartphone, they can just have a delightful ride through 12 beautiful towns, and hopefully stop and have lunch and stay in motels and all of those things. So thank you again to all of you for supporting this effort, and to Dan for always being there to solve the problems. It's just incredible. Almost lastly, just as evidence of the economic development potential, I took this sign last Thursday. In my town, this is Veronique and Didier. They're from Belgium. They contacted me. I host travelers through a program called Warm Showers, and they needed a place to stay for the night last Wednesday. It turned out they flew to Montreal. They were traveling to New York City, and unbeknownst to me, I didn't even know where they were coming from. They followed US Bike Route 7 all the way from the Canadian border to New Milford. So I said, well, we got to take a picture. So that's them, and they loved it. They loved every part of it. So thank you for your support. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Excellent. Yeah, and as Tom had mentioned, and thanks for that presentation, Tom. As Tom had mentioned, the Western New England Greenway / US Bicycle Route 7 is a partnership with dozens of municipalities and other cycling organizations, state agencies in 3 states. It really is a big conglomerate of people, all volunteering in most cases to further this project. So we, the National Heritage Area Program, have shepherded this from the backseat since its inception. But it's people like Tom and the Army of Volunteers who really make it cook. So thank you, Tom. It's an excellent project, and looking forward to moving the ball forward. So thanks again. Next on the agenda, if you have questions, again, put them in the chat. The Western New England Greenway project is at wnegreenway.org, and you can find everything there that you need about it. Next up, we're a fiscal sponsor of this amazing program centered in Pittsfield. This was born years back, kind of with the assistance of a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts. And Tessa Kelly has been at the control helm since its inception as well. And we're so pleased to support this program. The mastheads, take it away, Tessa.
Hi, everyone. What an inspiring meeting so far. Thank you all for sharing the work that you're doing. And thank you, Dan, for just always being such a responsive and helpful partner in all that each of us are working on. So I am a Pittsfield native. I'm an architect. And the Mastheads was born out of my master's thesis in architecture school at Harvard was an idea about using historic preservation to give Pittsfield residents a new and positive and engaging perspective on the place that we live. Having grown up in Pittsfield right after the era that GE left, most of the talk among Pittsfield residents is very negative and is about what has been lost. And there's very little talk about other aspects of Pittsfield's heritage and history that can be built upon. So the idea of this project was to identify really distinctive moments in Pittsfield's past and figure out how small architectural interventions could kind of bring them back into the fold of contemporary life. So one piece of this project was, and I'll show, oh, Dan, do you mind enabling screen sharing? Let's see. There we go. So we started a writer's residency program centered around 5 mobile writing studios that we constructed. And each of these studios is designed to represent a fragment of one of the 5 historic homes where American Renaissance authors were working in Pittsfield. So we're looking at the Hawthorne studio right here, which is a fragment of the kind of intersection between 2 gables where Hawthorne was working in the attic at his house right over the border in Stockbridge. We have a Melville studio, Thoreau, Longfellow, and Oliver Wendell Holmes. So beginning in 2014, we got a grant from the NEA, as Dan mentioned, to initiate this program, design the 5 studios, and we developed sort of an umbrella conception of what this literary program could do beyond our central focus initially was to bring 5 emerging writers from around the country here to Pittsfield to pair each one with these 5 studios in order to try to make Pittsfield once again be a springboard for some of the nation's greatest writing talents as it once was. So this year we were in our 7th year of the residency program. We receive about 300 applications each year for our 5 spots. And in addition to the July residency that we do, we wanted to find ways that this program could also really support and engage with Pittsfield residents. So we also have been running a poetry in schools program in the Pittsfield Public Schools for the past about 7 years, and we've served almost 800 kids to date. And so poetry is actually on the curricular frameworks of the Pittsfield Public School system, but many of the particularly most challenged elementary schools in Pittsfield, the teachers don't know how to teach poetry, and the students are performing in the bottom 7th percentile statewide on their literary frameworks. So we developed a program in partnership with the superintendent's office to bring professional poets into the classroom and to work with kids in 10-week sessions to do poetry prompts. And at the end of each of those sessions, we do a public design project in Pittsfield. So our most recent one, next time anyone walks up or down North Street, we created 800 tree tags, like what you would see at an arboretum, but taking a line of poetry from the students who were involved in the workshop this year. So there's some really wonderful ones on here if you want to scan through them a bit while I speak. So we have these currently installed throughout North Street, and twice a year we take the students' words out of the classroom and install them in some interesting and exciting way throughout the city, so that the student poets can actually feel like they are recognized and celebrated as artists in the community. And so the idea is for both through the residency, the visibility of the studios, which are also available to the public to reserve for day residencies, May through October, and then the public school programming, to try to create sort of a holistic new literary energy in the city of Pittsfield, hearkening back to the important literary heritage that we have here. So this is showing one of the tags installed, and this is just showing some of the kids standing in front of their tree tags and proudly reading what their tag says. So these particular students in these images are at a school called Crosby Academy, which is a school where students that principals at the other Pittsfield schools have deemed sort of impossible to keep in the mix with the other kids, send them all to Crosby Academy. And it's a really sort of rough place to witness, to be honest. It's in a basement, and I think has been a very joyless place. So we have really focused on continuing to partner with Crosby Academy and really uplifting the voices of these students and making them feel like they have meaningful things to say and that they deserve to be celebrated. And our updates of what's coming up next this fall are twofold. One, we are going to partner with the Clark Art Institute in Williamstown, and we're going to take our 60 students who will be in the poetry program this fall from Morningside School in Conti and Crosby Academy 2 times to the Clark to see. The first time we bring them, they will get a guided tour of an exhibition that's up that's called Human Ecologies, and it's all about how people relate to a sense of place. So we'll start at the bottom of the hill, then we'll take them up the trail that leads to the Stone Hill Center. Along the way, the grounds director will tell them about the different trees that we're seeing, and then at the top, they'll get a tour of the gallery there. Along the way, we'll be doing writing stops. And then at the end, after that first visit, we will do similar to what we did with these tree tags. We'll extract some really interesting lines that they wrote. And then at the end of the fall, we will install a series of canvas bands that we will embroider their line of poetry on, and we'll tie these bands around the trees walking up the trail. So their work will actually be installed at the Clark, and we'll come back with their families for a celebration. We'll walk up the trail. Each student will get a chance to read their line of poetry, and the exhibition will remain up for a handful of months for the public to also enjoy. And the other new thing we have coming up this fall is that we're going to slightly expand the program, the organization of our in-schools program, from being just professional poets coming into the schools, and instead we're going to start an actual teacher training with interested 3rd grade teachers throughout the city of Pittsfield. And we specifically are honing in on 3rd grade because 3rd grade is known as the year where students transition from learning to read to reading to learn. So it's seen as this really pivotal year in terms of what the role of reading is in the life of a 3rd grader. So we're going to try to expand our poetry teaching to full-time Pittsfield Public School staff who teach the 3rd grade, in hopes that this poetry instruction can become part of every Pittsfield Public School kid's experience. And even longer term after that, we would love to have maybe 1 year in elementary school, 1 year in middle school, and 1 year in high school, where all students going through the Pittsfield Public School system engage with this program, not only to learn about writing their own poetry, but we also use the program to introduce them to really important writers of Pittsfield's past. So each year we focus on sharing the work of a different era of writers who were in Pittsfield, from the Civil War period and social activism around that era, to the Gilded Age, to the Harlem Renaissance. Each year we sort of introduce them to a different batch of local writers. And alongside that, we invite them to produce their own work, which we then install throughout the city for all to enjoy. So that's what's going on with us.
So thanks, Tessa. And, you know, every time I get an invoice to pay and it's like something unusual, like door handles or tree tags or something, I've learned just to ask, what's this about? Not to question what's going on.
I do have, may I share one other tiny update that you just reminded me of with the door handles, which is the last thing we're doing this fall is we received a grant from the Fitzpatrick Trust to build an ADA ramp into the Melville studio. So we will have one accessible studio, which will be new for us this year.
Stunning work as usual. And, you know, it's just a program that's really developed in for me in many surprising ways. But you know, visit the website. It's where it's the mastheads, right? Let's say I had it up on my screen.
Yes,
here.
it's themastheads.org, and we call it the mastheads because in Moby Dick, Ishmael talks about the experience of going up into the masthead, and it's a space that's just sized for one person. And from that space, you have sort of an invitation to look at your surroundings in a new way. So we refer to these small studios as the mastheads after that description.
Stunning. Stunning work. Thank you, Tessa. Truly appreciated and looking forward to the next project. So all excellent work. And we at the Upper Housatonic Valley National Heritage Area are proud and pleased to be the fiscal sponsor of that project. So it's good. It goes to the heart of one of our interpretive goals, and that is to share our history with our youth. And so thank you, Tessa. Appreciate that, and appreciate your time today putting a report together and coming on. So the next on the agenda was the annual Housatonic Heritage Walks. I'm going to skip that in the interest of time, but please check out our website for this year's list of heritage walks. They're coming up weekends in September, every Saturday and Sunday throughout September and early October. And on our website, again, free guided walks. Next is our Oral History Center, which we operate in partnership with Berkshire Community College. Judith Monachina is director. And I'll turn it over to you, Judith. Thank you.
Thanks. And I just want to say I spent a day in one of those writing studios, and it was one of the best days I've ever spent. And I keep wanting to go back, even if you don't have anything to write, just go spend the day. It's amazing. Yeah. So today, rather than try to run through all the projects, I'm just going to talk about three very briefly. And say that, and we're in the middle of these three, or actually at the beginning of them. I was thinking about this. We're sort of, we're at the beginning of a third phase of the Oral History Center. The first one was learning what we needed in the community, engaging in a few projects like the NAACP and the Monterey Library Oral History Project, and we started the Four Town Project. Phase two was, and we did lots and lots of workshops and some symposiums to sort of learn and to teach, but to learn what was needed in the community. The second phase is heavily archival, like really getting these projects that are legacy projects, especially that are hanging around in boxes of tapes and in some cases on hard drives, and getting them into the archive. There are a lot of those. We could be full-time on that, but as we go into phase three, we'll do other things too. We'll get back to some more projects, make an oral history of work project and the paper making heritage project, which you've already heard about at some point, but and we will continue to do some workshops and things like that. But today I just want to mention briefly three projects that we are doing. If I can get down to the bottom of this page, yes. The Berkshire Community College Oral History Project was started actually at the beginning of this center. And it's funny, I can't find my scroll bar. There it is. So anyway, it's a project that we started right at the beginning. As you know, BCC was the first community college in the state, and that's because of this person up here, Thomas O'Connell, who was the first president, and this person down here, who was a state representative from Massachusetts. He proposed the legislation, Tom Witowski, that made that he and a guy from Cape Cod, they proposed the legislation that created the community college system. And so these are the first community colleges in the state. And he died last week. And so we were really happy that we had done this oral history with him. Ellen Kennedy circulated it to all of the staff and faculty, which made me very happy that it was seen by lots of people, but there are lots of good stories in here. And what we're doing now with that is we have an archives assistant, Jennifer Cummings, who is getting them ready for the archive, metadata, doing all the things that the archive will need, that the state archive will need to put them in. So they will be safe sort of forever, in perpetuity, whatever. Another project that I wanted to mention, which is brand new, is this Berkshire County Historical Society Legacy Collections. I found this wonderful photograph. That's basically what they have. They have 300 tapes. And we will do an inventory of those tapes. Actually, an assistant there, Andrea Madden, is doing the inventory of these tapes right now, and she will digital copy, or she will start to digital copy. This is a very big project, and eventually these will also get into the archive. This is our second project with the Berkshire County Historical Society, and so we're really happy to be working on something with them again and to have that wonderful intern. Third is the Town, which you've heard about since the beginning. We inventoried the oral history collections of 4 towns: Sheffield, Sharon, Kent, and what's the fourth one? Anyway, so Sharon is in the archive. It's in the Connecticut State Archive. This was a very long process, and we had an intern doing that work for a year, an intern from Northwest Connecticut Community College. And so we're moving on to Kent. But in the meantime, we have just received tapes of Sheffield farmers that were done by the Land Trust. We actually, Jen Owens has the tapes, and Berkshire Athenaeum will hold them, while Kate Abbott, another temporary archives person, will inventory them, digital copy them, and get them into the archive. So we will have those farmers' stories safe. Right now, they're a box of tapes, and so that's always scary. And so is a hard drive, by the way. But so anyway, these are our projects. This is our projects page. Take a look anytime to see if read anything. Some of these have the interviews on them posted there. Mostly our goal is to get them into a state archive, but we also have some great online exhibits and other things that you can look at actually before they're even in the archive and public. I just want to say quickly that we were invited by the Massachusetts Historical Society this year to advise them on their oral history project that they're starting. They've never done an oral history project, and they're the oldest historical society in the country. So they asked 4 people, including us, to come and talk to them about the pitfalls and the joys of oral history. So that was an honor and a lot of fun. Thank you all.
Terrific. Thank you, Judith. And it's one of the projects that we, I guess, hadn't envisioned when we were newly created as a national heritage area, but the Oral History Center was created because we understood there was a need from all of our history partners. And over the course of years, and with Judith's expert guidance, we've created the Oral History Center now, and on the campus of Berkshire Community College, which gives us a lot of access to other community resources, and of course, the talent that's there on campus as well. So thank you, Judith. You know, that is one of our core programs now, the Oral History Center, and I hope history organizations continue to visit that in Judith as see us as a resource for the oral history projects. It's coming up on 1 o'clock now. We ran over time, but I just wanted to say thank you for joining us today. The projects that you heard about in additional detail just sort of scratch the surface about what we as a National Heritage Area do, and that is to work with the communities to identify the needs, what we can do as a federally funded program to assist our partners. And so the more we hear from you, the better we can do our jobs. So keep the cards and letters coming. I do want to do a quick thank you publicly to our Massachusetts Senators Elizabeth Warren and Ed Markey, our U.S. Congressman from Berkshire District, Berkshire, I think it's going to massacre this, Richie Neal anyway. Congressman Neal has been so supportive of this program, as have the Massachusetts senators. In Connecticut, Senators Chris Murphy and Dick Blumenthal, extremely supportive, and Congresswoman Johanna Hayes from Connecticut's 5th District, also super supportive. We couldn't do our job without the support in DC that they give us. Thank you to our program leaders, Ronan, Judith, Tom, Tessa, thank you. I can't thank you enough for taking the time today to come and talk a little bit more in depth about the programs. Truly appreciate it. I know it's not always the easiest thing to pull a presentation together and join a meeting like this and spend the time, but I truly appreciate that. My board, the Board of Trustees for the Upper Housatonic Valley National Heritage Area, you're very supportive. Give me a long leash to be in the communities, working with all the partners that we do, and then allowing me to move forward with programming. So I have nothing but gratitude for you as board members. The general public, without whom we could not operate, and of course our dear friend Mariah, who is again working the controls for today's meeting and one of our board members. So thanks again. That's all I have for today's meeting. Join our newsletter if you'd like. Visit our website for more details. And have a wonderful day.
All right, thanks, Dan.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, Dan.
Dan.
Take
You
care,
are
all.
wonderful.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, wonderful. You did a good job, Dan.
Thanks, Ray.